Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. There's been a significant change in voting sentiment this week on the eve of the Dunkley by-election. Support for the Labor government is down 2.5% to 50% on a two-party preferred basis, now even with the coalition, also on 50%. If a federal election were held now, we'd have a hung parliament, with minor parties and independents deciding who would be our next government, the latest Roy Morgan survey shows. The big swing against Labor came after asylum seeker boats landed in Western Australia and opposition leader Peter Dutton hammered the Albanese government all week over the failures in border protection policies. There were also significant anti-Semitic protests in Sydney and Melbourne last week that were reflected in big swings against the ALP in both those states. And extensive blackouts of hundreds of thousands of people in Victoria due to heavy storms throughout the state. The mass downing of key energy transmission lines contributed to the widespread power outages. Government confidence was virtually unchanged for the second straight week at 82.5, well below the neutral level of 100, because only 34.5% of Australians say the country's heading in the right direction, while 52% say the country's heading in the wrong direction. Consumer confidence, the ANZ Roy Morgan consumer confidence, was also virtually unchanged this week at 83.2. Consumer confidence has now spent 56 weeks below the level of 85, the longest time below 85 in the history of the measurement. Although the Reserve Bank have not increased interest rates since November, the momentum in mortgage stress and cost of living pressures continues unabated, keeping a lid on consumer confidence. In Victoria, consumer confidence recovered somewhat this week, up 2.3 points to 82.5, after American singer Taylor Swift played 3 packed-out shows at the MCG. This was a recovery from the previous week's fall of 5 points. Inflation expectations were little changed this week, down 0.1% to 5.1%. So Australians now expect annual inflation to be 5.1% over the next 2 years. The longer term trends show inflation expectations have now averaged 5.1%, the same, throughout the summer months since the start of December. Now, mortgage stress. Roy Morgan's the only company that measures mortgage stress every month, and the latest mortgage stress figures are up slightly for a second straight month. So 1.6 million mortgage holders, or 31% of all Australians with a mortgage, are at risk of mortgage stress. This is the highest proportion of mortgage holders at risk for over 15 years since September 2008 during the global financial crisis. The back-to-back increases followed the Reserve Bank's decision to raise interest rates in November to 4.35%, a 12-year high. Since then, the Reserve Bank has opted to leave interest rates unchanged at its next 2 meetings. In addition, 19.8%, almost 20% of mortgage holders were considered to be extremely at risk. That's an estimated 994,000 mortgage holders who are at risk of being unable to pay even the interest component of their loan. Although concerns about inflation have eased in recent months, the official figure still remains above the Reserve Bank's target band of 2 to 3%. If the Reserve Bank were to raise interest rates again in March, an estimated 1.64 million Australians would be at risk of mortgage stress by the end of April. The latest Roy Morgan readership figures for the 12 months to December 2023 have been released, and they show news matters. 97% of Australians, an estimated 21.4 million, consume news in any given month, either in a newspaper or digitally via an online website or an app. Some interesting results from the survey show that now people can look at their newspapers digitally. For state-based mastheads, a large share of their audience is outside their home state. For New South Wales mastheads, 48% of their audience, or 4.5 million people, live outside New South Wales. For Victorian mastheads, 46% of their audience, or 3.3 million people, live outside Victoria. These shares are even higher in Western Australia and South Australia, but lower for Queensland. For detailed information on the latest Roy Morgan readership figures and the Think News brands analysis, visit the Roy Morgan website. And finally today, we take a look at the Workplace Gender Equality Agency's gender pay gap data, released widely today. Roy Morgan's delighted to report that our gender pay gap for median total remuneration and median base salary is non-existent. It's 0.0%. We pay everyone equally based on the work they put in. Now this result's not a new thing. Roy Morgan's had a median total remuneration gender pay gap, that's a tongue twister, of 0% for 3 straight years now. This result though compares favourably to other businesses in our industry, the professional scientific and technical services industry, where the average gender pay gap is 29.3% based on median total remuneration, and slightly better at 27% for median base salaries. There's clearly still significant work to do across the industry to close this gap. For more information on Roy Morgan's gender pay comparisons, again, visit the Roy Morgan website. And that's a wrap. Thanks for your interest this week in Roy Morgan's latest results. I'll be back next week to bring you the most up-to-date readings on consumer confidence, inflation expectations, voting intention, and business confidence. Thanks for listening.